On March 27th, Raye released her second studio album, This Music May Contain Hope. The 17-track project runs at just a little over an hour and is genuinely nothing less than a masterpiece. I wasn't very familiar with Raye, aside from having Escapism on repeat when she released it back in 2022. But from performances I would catch here and there, I've always been very aware she's one of the most talented vocalists of her generation. Her 2025 Grammy performance alone made that very clear. This Music May Contain Hope is easily one of the best albums I've ever heard, and without a doubt the strongest release of 2026 so far. Raye co-wrote and co-produced every track on the project, and you can really feel the care and attention to detail on every single song. The production sounds expensive, it's full and cinematic, and the album blends orchestra, jazz, pop, soul, and even EDM. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of genres under one project, but it all fits perfectly together. Raye even features film and music producer Hans Zimmer on her standout track Click Clack Symphony. Hans has composed music for films such as Interstellar, Inception, The Dark Knight, and, most importantly, Shark Tale. At times, it feels like you're listening to the score of an old Hollywood noir film instead of a contemporary album. The lyricism is clever and the storytelling is flawlessly executed. Raye has divided the project into 4 seasons, starting with Autumn. Throughout the record, she even breaks the fourth wall, directly guiding the listener through the narrative. This is a one-of-a-kind album that takes you on an unforgettable journey of love, heartbreak, and resilience. Raye took a creative risk that absolutely paid off. She has proven herself to be a true visionary and innovator. This Music May Contain Hope absolutely deserves a nomination for Album of the Year at next year's Grammys. Now, let's do it track by track. But quickly, before we get started, if you love pop culture, feel free to subscribe. I upload videos every single Monday. The journey begins in Autumn at 2:33 a.m. in Paris with intro, Girl Under a Grey Cloud. In this track, Raye immediately breaks the fourth wall and sets the scene alongside a beautiful orchestra. She tells the story of the girl under a grey cloud. A woman in her late 20s who has carried a sadness for a long time has finally reached her breaking point. Personally, I love the spoken word. It immediately places you right where you should be and prepares you for the journey ahead. I Will Overcome is a story of the walk from the bar to the hotel Raye mentioned on the first track. On this 500-step walk, she contemplates loneliness and her own emotional struggles. She mentions not wanting to be in Paris anymore, the city that reminds her of a past lover. She also recognizes the irony that the same people who compare her to Amy Winehouse can often be the ones who mistreat her online, echoing struggles Amy once faced as well. She also wrestles with her own thoughts, comparing herself to everyone she sees online. However, despite these difficulties, she knows that she's capable of overcoming them. This is a beautiful track about resilience. Raye's vocals are gorgeous and the instrumental is cinematic, and it reminds me of a Bond track. Beware the South London Lover Boy is a much more upbeat track. This is a cautionary tale about toxic men, or more specifically, toxic South London boys. The song begins with unsettling strings before shifting into a more dynamic production. Raye describes the characteristics of what makes a South London boy toxic. These men are charismatic and somewhat self-aware. And although self-awareness can be a green flag, a South London boy won't actually care about you. Raye also suggests that, in some cases, it's safer to be polite and go along with it rather than rejecting them due to violence. I find that the chorus almost sounds like a jingle, making it very catchy. And in the outro, Raye picks up the pace even more and ends the song on a high note. Next, on the What's Up Shakespeare, Raye relates her experience to Eves. Both women were deceived by their own traitors. Comparing her past lover to a wolf in sheep's clothing, Raye lets the audience know that a What's Up Shakespeare is a guy who would text her beautiful poetry. She alludes to being fully consumed by the romance, only to learn she was one of 7 other women he was talking to. The strings are beautiful, and the piano adds a dynamic layer throughout the song. I also like that she incorporated the sound a WhatsApp notification makes on the chorus. The brass and overall instrumental switch up at the end of the song is amazing. Winter Woman is the first track of the winter season. Raye sings about seeing an ex with a new girl. She becomes sad and cold, coining herself as a Winter Woman. She had the wrong idea about a relationship. However, she knows there are better days ahead and eventually reminds herself of who she is. Beautifully samples Winter from Vivaldi's The Four Seasons. The sample adds a cinematic feel to the track. Click Clack Symphony, featuring Hans Zimmer, is, rightfully so, the most cinematic track on the record. Raye sings about asking her friends for help to go out dancing instead of staying home alone and struggling with her depression. This track feels like a companion to I Will Overcome. The last line on the song, "The cold never lasts, my darling, it just teaches the heart how to burn," is a beautiful continuation to Winter Woman. The spoken word is inspirational, and the instrumental at the end of the song is nothing short of cinematic. Thank you, Hans Zimmer. I Know You're Hurting is a powerful ballad. Raye addresses someone in her life who is currently struggling. She reminds them that she's always there for them and encourages them to keep pushing. She hopes the music will help him heal. The instrumental on the track flawlessly switches between delicate and powerful to match Raye's vocals, and the electric guitar at the end was a great addition. The repetition on the outro makes the song feel like a prayer. Lifeboat is an EDM track that opens with various voices reminding the listener not to give up. Raye appears as an inner voice that encourages you to keep going. I imagine this track playing on her night out during Click Clack Symphony. Although the track is over 4 minutes long, I see it more as an interlude and a turning point where the album starts varying in sound. Lifeboat is definitely the most sonically distinct track on the project, and although it disrupts the sonic palette of the album, it doesn't feel out of place. Raye opens the first track of Spring with I Hate the Way I Look Today. She immediately breaks the fourth wall by letting the listener know the name of the song. In this dynamic jazz track, she explores her struggles with her self-esteem, admitting she doesn't treat herself kindly, and even contemplates plastic surgery. However, Raye is aware that she needs to get it together and learn to accept the way she looks. The bridge feels like a callback to Lifeboat, wanting to repeat nice words until you believe them. The saxophone solo is a standout moment on the track. In Goodbye Henry, featuring Al Green, Raye also breaks the fourth wall, this time to let us know this is a sad song despite its upbeat production. The track reflects on a relationship and a guy she no longer talks to. She makes it clear that this relationship wasn't toxic. It just simply didn't work out. In the end, Raye confesses she's still in love with Henry. The production on the song is airy and sweet. This juxtaposition gives the song a bittersweet feel. I really like how Raye introduced Al Green, making the song feel like a live performance. Nightingale Lane is yet another track where Raye breaks the fourth wall, explicitly telling the listener what the song is about. The bittersweet ballad describes the biggest heartbreak she's ever experienced. The instrumental leans into a timeless blues that feels reminiscent of the 50s or 60s. Raye's vocals carry the emotional weight of each word. In the song, she's able to reflect back at this relationship and recognize that they were not right for each other. However, she's optimistic that she will love again. In the chorus, she mentions standing in the rain and watching her ex walk away, a beautiful callback to Winter Woman. Skin and Bones sounds like a funky, early 2000s song with a jazz influence and a very catchy chorus. Raye sings about her frustration with dating men who aren't looking for love, only seeking a physical connection. She highlights how low dating standards have become and shares her experience with the men who would only text her to cancel plans and hook up instead. With Where Is My Husband, Raye begins the summer season. As the album's lead single, I wouldn't say it represents the overall sonic palette of the project. However, I understand why it was chosen. It's easily the catchiest song on the record, with an earworm of a bridge you won't be able to stop singing. Sonically, this is a very energetic pop track with jazz elements. Lyrically, Raye wonders where her husband is and if he's currently with another woman. Her grandmother makes her second appearance on the record to reassure her that he's on his way. Fields is a beautiful song dedicated to her grandfather Michael. Raye feels guilty and acknowledges on a voicemail that she hasn't made him a priority. She sings about wanting to be free from her commitments and be a carefree kid again, wondering where time has gone. Raye's grandfather is featured throughout the song. He answers her voicemail, letting her know how loved she is. She ever so slightly breaks the fourth wall again and reveals her grandfather is also a songwriter, highlighting their shared dreams and love for music. The instrumental is nostalgic and sweet. The instrumentals are more laid back, and Raye's delivery feels grounded. Her harmonies feel like a hug throughout the song. Joy is an empowerment anthem. Raye is ready to step into the daylight and lets go of all her emotional burdens. She acknowledges her pain is temporary and joy will always come in the morning. The song samples Damn Right I Am Somebody by Fred Wesley and the JBs. The instrumental is dynamic and uplifting, making it a track tailor-made for dancing and releasing your fears. Raye's sisters, Ama and Absolutely, are also featured on the song, each singing their own verse, with all their vocals blending beautifully. In Happier Times Ahead, Raye tells a story of 3 different people: a young heartbroken woman, a working man, and an elderly lady, each experiencing their own emotional pain. Despite the difficulties these people are facing, Raye reminds them that happiness will return, and the hard times are only temporary. The instrumental is upbeat and optimistic, highlighting the themes Raye sings about. On the last track, Fin, Raye once again breaks the fourth wall and rolls the credits directly. There's something very meta about that. She thanks both the listeners and everyone who helped her make the album. The instrumental is cinematic and feels like the happy ending of an old Disney princess movie. This was the perfect way to end an album that feels like a movie from top to bottom. My top tracks are Click Clack Symphony featuring Hans Zimmer, I Hate the Way I Look Today, and Nightingale Lane. What did you think about the album and what are your favorite tracks? If you like this video, feel free to give it a like. If you love pop culture, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye!